Our main worries about intensive livestock farming really centre around greenhouse gas emissions. Last week, Keir Starmer announced the UK's commitment to reducing domestic emissions by 80%, and the government's independent advisors say that we need to significantly reduce meat consumption and production to be able to come anywhere close to those targets.
This is where you have a bit of a problem, though, isn't it? Because from a greenhouse gas emission point of view, it's better to farm intensively because it reduces the output. If you farm extensively, animals take longer to get to the right size and therefore emit more emissions.
Yeah, we think we need to really stop and avoid rationalising intensive livestock farming systems just because they have a lower greenhouse gas emissions profile than more extensive livestock systems. Intensive livestock has a much higher greenhouse gas emissions profile than other sources of protein. We can't simply pretend that this form of agriculture is good for the climate or good for the planet. There is a very complex set of environmental and social impacts that we need to consider with intensive livestock farming, and that particularly includes river pollution. 2/3 of our rivers fail to reach good ecological status due to agriculture, and some new research that we revealed just a couple of weeks ago show that intensive livestock units produce over 30,000 of tonnes of waste every day.
But then let's look at the example we just heard, where the waste that they are producing is going into an anaerobic digester and is producing electricity. So there, they've thought about it, they've realised the problem and they've solved it.
Yeah, I think that was a great example that you highlighted. I think where you have these systems that are small scale and circular, and where you can use waste as a resource, like it should be, it should be a resource, it should be used as a fertilizer. Those systems are fantastic, but it's not the norm. The norm is that waste is being spread on fields, and we know
that's when it's being used as a fertilizer. That's the whole point. Muck is magic.
Ideally, that would be the case. We want to see farm waste being used as a way to fertilize fields, but unfortunately, the volume of waste that's being produced has gone up so much, especially from intensive livestock systems. And we've seen an increasing attention on the fact that agriculture is a source of river pollution, but we want to make sure that it's the right people that are getting blamed for the pollution. And these corporations are kind of washing their hands of the problem and leaving farmers to deal with it.
Fundamentally, doesn't this come down to money and to consumers? Consumers will decide how much they want to spend, and that decides how farmers farm.
There's sort of two things to consider there. The first is the farmer's perspective on the economics, and the second is the consumer. And we know that the returns from the kind of supply chains that intensive livestock units operate in, that those returns are very low. They can be just around 1p in the pound. But even those returns offer some level of security, which is very attractive and which is preferable to a very insecure market. We believe the solution here isn't to give up our farming system to one that is dominated by large agribusinesses, many of whom are overseas owned. We think that there's solutions that can offer reliable income to farmers that don't involve these kind of systems. If you look in East Ayrshire, for example, their public procurement contract buys directly from farmers, and it guarantees them an income and means that they can take risks and innovate. From the consumer side, even though they say they want to buy sustainable food and they want to buy high welfare food, the fact is that their incomes are being squeezed, which means that the power that they have to make ethical choices is becoming less and less. And we think the solution to this is to make sustainable and healthy food more accessible and more affordable to those on low incomes. And there's ways to do that that are relatively easy. If you look at public procurement, the government's promised to buy 50% local and sustainable. Let's get that happening now.
Ruth Westcott there from Sustain.